Next on Max TV, we take a look back at numero uno. We preview Klitschko Arreola, and we have news and notes coming up on the next round. And welcome to the next round, brought to you by Everlast. Gabriel Montoya, Steve Kim, talking boxing. We go to round number one. It's the return of money. Floyd Mayweather makes his return. He goes to 40-0 with a clear-cut 12-round decision over Juan Manuel Marquez. Your scores 118-109, 120-107, and 119-108. On the undercard for the WBO interim lightweight title, Michael Katsidis, a split decision in 12 rounds over Vicente Escobedo's 116-112, 113-115, and 118-110. And then the WBA featherweight title fight was on the line. And in the rematch, Chris John wins clearly with the 12-round decision over Rocky Juarez, 114-113, 119-108, 117-111. Gabe, let's go back up top to the main event. Mayweather comes back successfully. My question is, how much credit does he really deserve? First of all, I thought this fight was a physical mismatch from the very onset of the fight. And now you come in, the weight was 144. He pays for the extra 2 pounds, which cost him $600,000. Basically, a physical mismatch became that much more of a grind for Juan Manuel Marquez. We talked about it last week. If Marquez can last the distance, it would be a moral victory. He certainly got the moral victory, but did Floyd Mayweather make the statement that he wanted to make?
I don't think so. I mean, he can say that he's the best, or this was for numero uno, or number one pound for pound, all he wants. But at the end of the day, Floyd in his last few biggest fights proved he could beat the junior welterweight king and the lightweight king at his weight of welterweight. I don't think that really proves anything at all. Marquez, to me, he didn't even really fight Juan Manuel Marquez. It didn't look like the same guy we saw at lightweight or at featherweight. He didn't look fast. He didn't look like he had his legs under him. He looked like a blown-up welterweight. It was clear that the weight disadvantage was huge in this fight. And we don't even know what Floyd weighed the night of the fight because he wouldn't let anybody see how much he had rehydrated. And, in years past, he'd weighed in at 147 or 146 and barely gained a pound the night of the fight. But it's clear that he's really grown into welterweight now, which means that he's going to be on fight night closer to middleweight or junior middleweight. The fight really incensed me watching it and listening to the HBO crew go crazy over his skills. Yeah, he's a skilled fighter. He's a defensive wizard. But he's beating up on smaller guys. He's avoiding the big challenges. And he's really crapping on the fans and the sport by not coming in on weight and carrying so little that he didn't even try to get down to the 2 pounds in weight, which most fighters worth their salt would do. Instead, he just threw money at the problem and, kind of gave the sport the finger. I'm getting kind of sick of it, Steve.
Well, here's the thing about Mayweather, and I give him credit. I thought the reflexes, the speed, the technique were still there, though. He did not look like a rusty fighter, did not look like a guy on a 2-year layoff. But we already knew that about Floyd Mayweather. Here's the thing about Marquez, and I talked about it last week. In his last 2 fights at 135, even though he beat some pretty good fighters in Joel Casamayor and the baby bull Juan Diaz, I thought there were clear signs of physical slippage. Yeah. I don't think the legs were there, and I don't think the reflexes were there. And when Marquez tried to pull the trigger on the right hand, it really looked like he was throwing that punch underwater. Had a lot of drag to him, no real speed. Then you go up against a guy that's not only bigger than you, and this was the part that I think that was missing. Forget the size issue. I think the speed and quickness was also a big advantage for Floyd Mayweather. The thing that gets me about Mayweather is this. He talks about wanting to do great things and how he's the best fighter in the world. There was a guy that did the Kanye West on him and interrupted his basic acceptance speech by the name of Sugar Shane Mosley. If a Manny Pacquiao fight cannot be made, folks, and I don't think it will be right now because of Bob Arum and Al Heyman, I think the most natural fight out there is Sugar Shane Mosley.
I totally agree. I mean, we've been saying this, since this fight with Marquez was made. The real fight, Floyd retired the welterweight champion. He's the linear welterweight champion for whatever that's worth. Shane Mosley has proven himself to be the best welterweight right now. It's a natural fight. It's the fight that the fans want to see. And, I'm getting kind of tired of watching Floyd pick the fights that only he and his people want to see. What about the fans? We're actually the ones, not us as writers, but, we started out as boxing fans. We pay our $50 for the pay-per-view, or we go to the fights. We spend the hotel fees and everything that comes with it. Why can't we get the fight that we want to see?
Gabe, here's the bottom line about Floyd Mayweather, and to paraphrase Bob Arum, he doesn't care about us schmucks. No. He really doesn't. Every fight is really about padding his bank account, which is fine. This is called prize fighting.
Sure.
And in terms of Floyd Mayweather's profile, I do give him this. There was a sizable crowd. Now, no matter what Leonard Yesterby says, the fight absolutely, positively was not a sellout. There's an announced crowd of about 13,000 plus. Many of those seats, I think, were discounted. I know some of them were given away. I know that as a fact. Yet, I believe the pay-per-view numbers will be significantly upgraded than the last time he had to carry an event as an A-side against Carlos Baldemir. I don't think this fight does 900,000 like Golden Boy and HBO pay-per-view are trying to say, but I certainly think it does right around 500 north, 500,000 or above. I don't know if he did enough, though, to really force the issue of a Manny Pacquiao fight, but I do think he is building a bit of a fan base. If there's always one African-American fighter that his people will follow, it used to be Roy Jones, and I think clearly now it is Floyd Mayweather. There's that one black fighter that black America will go out there and support to a certain degree.
Yeah, and I think even to a certain extent, just the casual fan in general is kind of picking up on Floyd. Walking around after the fight, there's a lot of fans, over the last couple days that have come up to me and said, the fight that we need to see is Mayweather versus Pacquiao. But I get the sense that people are more excited about seeing Pacquiao, as being the one that may be knocked off the perch. They see him as the number one and Floyd as the number two. I mean, clearly he's painted himself as the bad guy here.
Well, I've always said this about Floyd Mayweather. He may not be the greatest fighter of all time, but I'm beginning to think he is the greatest manager that ever lived. Eat your heart out, Doc Kearns, because nobody can pick soft spots, old guys, slow guys, or guys who just really aren't that good and get paid a lot of money for it, like a Floyd Mayweather. But give Juan Manuel credit. I think, to me, he was valiant. I think he tried to win. He wasn't trying to be a game loser. I think even in his own mind, he knew that he was outgunned, especially at the weigh-in. I think he had to know at this point, do I call off the fight or do I add on to my $3.25 million payday with another $600,000? I think that money represented basically a way of saying, I'm going to lose this fight, but at least I will get well paid for it. And I think Juan Manuel Marquez, I think there's a couple of options in talking to some of the people around Golden Boy. He could take on Ricky Hatton in Manchester. That's a fight they'll try to make it 140. Or he can go all the way back down to 135 and take on the WBO interim champion, Michael Katsidis, who we'll talk about later. But I get the sense, though, that Juan Manuel Marquez, the last real vestige of greatness we saw from this Mexican counterpuncher was in February in Houston against Juan Diaz.
I would tend to agree. I almost kind of worry about him going all the way back to 135, losing the muscle that he's gained, and kind of losing something in that process. Plus, I mean, going down, I think Katsidis versus Marquez would be a hell of a fight. But the money isn't quite there for who Marquez is at this point. He's kind of raised his profile. Probably Ricky Hatton would be the safest fight and the best fight and the most money fight for him. I think it's interesting, though. This fight was made so that we could kind of set up a fight down the line. Floyd, his job was to come in and look better against Marquez than Manny Pacquiao ever had. And to an extent, he did. He dominated him from, bell to bell. But he didn't stop him. And somewhere between, Floyd not doing his job and Marquez just being a true badass and a great fighter, lies the truth.
And at the same time, when Marquez and Pacquiao fight, that was an even fight in terms of weight. Neither guy had a significant size advantage to this degree. And I also believe this event, numero uno, was about testing out and gauging the market value of Floyd Mayweather. We already know the scores on the scorecards. What we're going to have to find out is the gate receipts at the box office and, more importantly, at the pay-per-view till. Taking a look at the undercard, Michael Katsidis Vicente Escobedo was a pretty good fight. I thought Katsidis won clearly, though. I thought he just really smothered and pressured Escobedo all night.
Yeah, I didn't see how it was possibly a split decision. Katsidis is pressured all night. He made Escobedo fight his fight. He cut off the ring. He beat him to the body, and he actually showed some improved skills. They've been working on getting him to not so much box more, but use some different defensive skills, picking off punches with his hands, kind of moving his head, and not really rushing in with his chin out and his guard wide open. I was very impressed by the improvements shown.
Yeah, the one thing Michael Katsidis continues to do, needs to do, is to really pressure behind the jab, because he's still a guy that comes in a little bit naked without the shield. I really believe a good, hard, fast puncher, though, will always give Katsidis problems. And just looking at the swollen jaw and the cuts, Michael Katsidis is certainly a catcher, and he's a guy who's a little bit of a bleeder. I think Katsidis is an exciting guy. I know people compare him to Arturo Gatti, but there's one main difference. Arturo Gatti at 30, 35, and 40 can bang. He could really erase any mistakes with one punch. I think Michael Katsidis is a pressure fighter. He's a guy that likes to smother. He likes to grind. But he's not what I'd call a real clean puncher. So a lot of his fights are really going to be grueling.
Yeah, I mean, he's almost kind of like a Margarito, like a tiny Margarito, and that he doesn't have that one great equalizer, but he's just going to beat your body up. He looks like he's a hard kind of bone-rattling puncher, that he just breaks you down slowly and kind of takes away your will and takes over the fight. I think he's always going to be in action fights. I don't don't know how long the career is going to last.
Well, the warranty's about to run out because
Yeah.
every single fight takes a physical toll. And like I said earlier, he's not a guy that could turn around a fight and score early knockouts, no matter who he's facing.
Yeah.
Also on this undercard, Chris John wins conclusively this time against Rocky Wars. Couple of thoughts here. Chris John, very good boxer, very technically sound, educated left hand, understands distance and timing. But you know what? When it comes to John and Juarez, I don't really need to see these guys again in the near future on TV days. I think Rocky Juarez strikes 17 and you're finally out. As for Chris John, again, effective, not necessarily exciting.
No, not so much. I mean, this fight, he actually stayed in the pocket a little more. He looked a little different than the first fight. His trainers had talked about having him sit down on his punches and trying to generate more power through, turning his shoulders more and turning his punches over more. But I don't think he's ever going to be an exciting type guy. He's going to rely on the guy that he's facing to create the excitement. And if you're looking for excitement, well, keep walking past Rocky Juarez's house because he's just not exciting.
I've always said about Rocky Juarez, if they had 15-round fights, he'd have a few less losses. If they had 30-round fights, he might be undefeated. If they had 100-round fights, he might be the greatest fighter that ever lived. There's one problem. They don't. Fights are at 12 rounds, and even when he was rattling the bones and rocking and rolling Chris John late in that fight, I got the sense that, unless he scores a miracle like John Tate, Mike Weaver, he wasn't going to get the decision because he was not just behind. He was way behind. He was not just behind by a couple of lengths. He was getting lapped. I thought he was a good 8-9 points down going into that 12th round. And as soon as Chris John heard the 12th round bell, the fight was essentially over. Now, I'm actually surprised one judge had it only a 1-point fight. Everyone ringside basically had it a 10-2 or 8-4 type of fight for Chris John.
It's the same scorecard I had. I mean, I guess it just goes to show you that you don't have to go to Houston to get bad judging.
Wow. And on that note, we wrap it up on numero uno. We come back, re-preview Klitschko Arreola on the next round, brought to you by Everlast. And we're back. Round number 2 of the next round brought to you by Everlast. Steve, Kim, Gabriel Montoya. We move to the Staples Center in Los Angeles for the WBC heavyweight title of the world. Vitaly Klitschko, Dr. Steelhammer, takes on Chris Arreola. Listen, I know what we have in Vitaly Klitschko. Big, strong, awkward, athletic boxer. The question mark I have is Chris Arreola. Is Chris Arreola, are they cashing in or are they cashing out?
It's hard to say. I mean, I know we have in Chris Arreola, we got Corona, we got pizza, we got fast food late at night. What I don't know is if he's got the desire and the heart to train out these last few weeks, get down to 250, which is not exactly where he should be. I think he should be in the 230s and 240s, but be mobile enough to get past those first 4 rounds with not a lot of damage and to have kind of pushed the pace against Klitschko and really make him work. I tend to think this is not a cash out. I think that Dan Goossen legitimately believes that his guy has two-fisted power and it is going to be the next Tyson or the Mexican Tyson as he likes to compare him. I think Henry Ramirez, the trainer, believes that he's got a guy that could really take on everybody out there and on any given night win. What I don't know is if Chris Arreola cares enough to do it, if he cares enough to stay in the gym, to be in the right kind of shape, and if he really wants this. That's the thing that I really question.
And looking at Chris Arreola a couple of weeks ago, he's come a long way physically, though, Gabe. This fight has been listed, I believe, as an 8 to 9 to 1 favorite. I'm going to say it right now. I'm not ordering the upset special, but I'm going to call for the upset alert. I think this fight is more along the lines of 3 to 1. I think that he's going to make this a good fight. He came down from about plus 290 and talking to Darrell Hudson, his strength and conditioning coach. He will be in the low 250s from what I understand. And seeing him at the 10 Goose Gym about 2 weeks ago, Gabe, he's moving his feet much quicker and lighter. Now, let me make this very clear. I did not call him Baryshnikov, Fred Astaire, or Michael Jackson when he was alive. But he's much more light and springy on his feet. And I think that's the key, is the ability to close the distance and smother Klitschko a little bit. And just looking at what they're doing in the gym, the little I've seen, they're going to, no doubt in my mind, pressure Klitschko with a hard double jab, get nice and low, and try to back up Klitschko. Because they believe Vitaly or Vladimir, they do not have a reverse gear. And I think they're going to try to steadily pressure this guy and go to the body. Guess what? You may not believe this, folks. I think we do have a real fight here on Figueroa Avenue in a couple days.
I think so. I mean, most guys you talk to, they say, oh, he's going to get blown out in 6, and it's not even going to be a competitive fight. I totally disagree. I mean, I could see this one going down all the way to the wire. If Arreola gets stopped, I think it's either going to be a surprise punch that he didn't see coming, or, it's going to be a gradual beatdown to the 12th round where he gasses and doesn't have anything to keep Klitschko off him. But I tend to think, you almost kind of look at Escobedo versus Katsidis, and it's that kind of fight where he's got to come forward, he's got to close that distance, not let Klitschko use that big jab, and then follow up with the right hand in rounds 4, 5, and 6. He's really just got to beat him down and take what he can get. Take the arms, the shoulder, the hip, whatever.
Gabe, here's the thing. Teddy Atlas uses the word or term cooperate. And I don't think there's any doubt the last couple of opponents of anyone named Klitschko have cooperated. They have stayed on the outside, they've made life very easy, and they have allowed Vitaly and Vladimir to go on that pitching mound and just pitch. And they're never knocked off their bearings, and they're never made to take a real forceful pressure back step. This is what I think Arreola is going to do. He's going to actually make Klitschko throw off of his back foot and punch with a little bit of resistance and with some pressure coming on the front door. Now, I think this is a real fight. I'm going to go with the chalk here. I'm going to go with Vitaly Klitschko, but I certainly don't believe that Chris Arreola will embarrass himself. In fact, I think Chris Arreola fights well enough that he's going to earn more fights. And I think in losing, he may legitimize his career more than any of his 24, 25-odd wins have so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go the other way.
Whoa, wait, this is bold, my friend.
I know. This is frightening. I'm a little scared. My heart's racing a little bit. If Chris Arreola comes in under 255, I'm taking him by decision.
It's a caveat, okay.
It's a caveat. If he comes in under 255, I'm taking him by decision. If he's over 255, I say late stoppage for Vitaly Klitschko.
I can agree with that, absolutely. I think anything above 255, and I think he's a sitting target.
Yeah.
If he comes in looking like one of those Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade floats, that balloon gets absolutely popped, and I think it gets knocked out early. I think it comes around 250. I think we have an absolute dogfight on our hands at the Staples Center.
Yep.
We come back, we wrap it up with news and notes. And we are back on the next round, brought to you by Everlast Worldwide. Steve, Kim, Gabriel Montoya wrapping it up. Here we go to the fight review. TV Azteca, September 15th. We have perhaps the end of a career. Simpwefwe Nonkwai with a 12-round decision over Jorge Arce. Also on this card, Humberto Soto scores an early knockout. Friday night fight, special edition on ESPN2. Guillermo Rigondeaux, TKO in 3 over Giovanni Andrade. Then on Showbox, Tony Grano with an upset special, TKO in 4 against Travis Kaufman. And then young bantamweight Chris Avalos goes to 12-0, scoring a 4th-round knockout over Giovanni Caro. And then Saturday in Germany for the vacant IBF middleweight title, Sebastian Silvestre with a 12-round decision over Giovanni Lorenzo. Going back up top, Arce is a brave warrior. Now, here's a guy that I like and respect, and I think all fans do, because they didn't just take from the game. He's a guy that gave to the game, and I hope he gives no more.
Yeah, it was kind of flirting with the end of the career. The last few fights, losing to Darchinian, he picked up a win after that, but it was more of a kind of a sacrifice, tune-up variety type fight. But now you're losing to guys that we've never even heard of. He's tough enough to go the distance against these guys and take a lot of damage. That's just his style, where he comes forward and he's just looking slower. The reflexes are getting shot. I just think it's time.
Yeah, and the South African Nonkwai is a typical South African fighter. Well-conditioned, sturdy, maybe not the greatest puncher, but very, very active. This guy is not a bum. This guy's a pretty good fighter.
Right.
The one thing I love about TV Azteca, I got to tell you, it seems like I'm watching TV on a rabbit ears in 1975 with the hazy picture and the 20-minute intervals in between fights. I don't know if Wayne's World, the Mexican version, is on next, but I'm starting to call it TV Public Azteca because it is public access. They really got to step up their game, at least into the mid-'80s, don't they?
Yeah, they actually cut over to the announcers, and it was actually sock puppets at one point. It was just, it was just terrible. I mean, maybe they could do like a telethon / boxing show, but man, yeah, I got $10 I'm willing to throw in.
Gabe, we've talked about this prospect before, and if there's ever a guy that's 3-0 and ready to make a move, I think it might be Guillermo Rigondeaux. And I've talked about this before, and I agree with Teddy Atlas. I was out there with him in 2000, Sydney, Australia, in an Olympic that had guys like Miguel Cotto and a lot of good American fighters. I got to tell you, Guillermo Rigondeaux of Cuba was the best fighter that I saw back in 2000. I don't think anything changed in 2004. I know Giovanni Andrade is long in the tooth. He's been around the block. But to blow him out the way he did and just absolutely handle him, I think Guillermo Rigondeaux, you could make a case within 2-3 fights. I think he might be ready, if not for a title shot, but to be considered a real bona fide contender.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it a lot in gyms, this guy's this, he's the next big thing, this guy's the truth. You look at Rigondeaux, he is the truth, man. I mean, this is a guy with, 500 amateur fights or close to it. He's as experienced as they come on the international level. I mean, there's not much more that he's going to learn other than, what it's like to fight with the headgear off, and it looks like he's pretty well acclimated. To go through a guy with 71 fights like that so easily, I was totally impressed.
And I think the best move they made, they even did this sooner than Joel Casamayor when they got him out to the West Coast, away from Miami, Florida, and back with Joe Goosen. that they did this really early with Guillermo Rigondeaux. They weren't going to wait 15 fights in and realize, wow, we're not turning into a professional fighter. We have an undisciplined guy we can't control. I think they stemmed that tide very, very early. And by making the move out west, away from the distractions of Little Havana and South Florida, I think they have accelerated the prospects of Guillermo Rigondeaux really having a big pro career.
Yeah, he's even staying, at Freddie's old apartment there, which is attached to the Wild Card, and it's kind of got him in like a humble fighter's environment where he's just living among the other fighters. I mean, yeah, he's got some of the flash and some of the bling, but he's a very humble guy. He realizes that time is of the essence because he's turned pro at such an advanced age, and you can see it in the work ethic. And then, more importantly, you see it inside the ring.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to Showbox, Tony Grano against Tony Kaufman. Entertaining fight. I think two limited heavyweights. What I found interesting was that Travis Kaufman had made such a big deal about going to Deer Lake. I'm in the best shape of my life. You want to talk about the air going out of the balloon early. Now, controversy here. Tony Grano gets hurt in the fourth round. Does the Galata. Absolutely. He meant to low blow Travis Kaufman. But then Travis Kaufman, to a certain degree, just absolutely fell apart the last half of that round before getting knocked out.
Yeah, he really did. I mean, it almost seemed like he kind of shot his load. He just threw all his punches trying to get the guy out of there. And that's actually been his style. He knows he's not a big puncher, so he always says that when he gets somebody hurt, he's just going to throw everything in the kitchen sink and hope to get throw enough punches and get the opponent to stop throwing back enough that the ref comes in and stops it. Well, it backfired on him. I think he threw way too many punches. He got really tired. I don't care where he's training. He could be training on the moon. He was totally tired in the fourth round, and it was a active paced fight for heavyweights. It was a pretty exciting fight actually. But Grano also spit out his mouthpiece.
Yes.
I mean, he got himself two kind of dirty breaks. But this is the fight game, and it was a down and dirty kind of fight. And props to Grano for pulling out the win.
And Gabe, on that undercard, a very exciting TV fighter that we like from that perspective, Chris Avalo scoring a fourth-round knockout over Giovanni Carraro. Here's the thing, though. I agree with Antonio Tarver. It is that simple. They better get him in the gym and teach him how to box. Footwork, balance, hand placement, and working off of the jab. Because when he steps up to that next level, and you have guys that can really shoot a straight jab and a straight 1-2, I think they could pick apart Chris Avalos. He's a fun fighter, but they better teach him how to actually box a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like the trainers went, oh, we've got a guy that can punch. Let's just throw him in there, and he's a natural fighter. But yeah, none of the nuances are there. There's no head movement. There's no double jab coming in. He just walks right into punches, and he's getting hit by Caro, who's a serviceable guy. But I mean, it's a guy that you shouldn't go life and death with. And at this point in his career, it just looks like it's not going to be a very long career.
Well, Antonio Tarver, I thought, made some great points. He said, at this stage of your career, if you are a prospect and you're not even at your 15th pro fight, and you're really picking out hand-picked opposition, you should not be going life and death. Those are developmental fights where the amount of punishment and the amount of resistance you face should not be that great. It's by the time you get to the real fights when you start to have your real tar and feather type of battles where you're going to get marked up. But I have a feeling this kid, like Michael Katsidis, every single fight is going to be the process where he has to get through that meat grinder to rack up victories. We wrap it up here with some tidbits. Jorge Linares, the gifted WBA 130-pound champion, over the weekend he made it official. He signs a promotional pact with Golden Boy Promotions. And this is a fight that is being discussed. A doubleheader December 12th, perhaps in San Jose. Victor Ortiz versus the dreaded TBA. And maybe IBF junior lightweight champion Robert Guerrero taking on either Humberto Soto or Rocky Martinez. If this fight comes to fruition, it will be on HBO's Boxing After Dark. And then January 30th, sources tell me, Shane Mosley, Andre Berto at the Mandalay Bay looks imminent. Going back up top, Jorge Linares, we've talked about it in the past. If you want to talk about a guy that I'd buy future stock in, he is absolutely a blue chip stock. I think if he gets going, he stays healthy, stays focused, within 2 years, you look at those pound-for-pound lists, there's no reason why he shouldn't be on every single one.
Yeah, inside the top 5. I mean, he's the real deal. He's another guy that you could say he's the truth. And we've been talking about him for a while, that, Tican needed to bring him over here, partner up with an American, promoter, and get this guy some fights. I'm really excited that he's now finally got this deal going.
Yeah, and Gabe, he fights October 10th in Japan, and the plan is by 2010 and beyond, have him fighting every 3-4 months, have him fighting in America. There's a lot of talent between 30 and 40. He's already won a title at 26 and 30. I could see him going all the way up to 35 and 40, perhaps even beyond, and really becoming a multi-divisional champion. December 12th, I hope this happens, but I love this fight. Robert Guerrero against Soto, I think, would be a litmus test. And I think even Rocky Martinez, the aggressive Puerto Rican who's all balls and courage, I think, again, that's another great matchup for TV.
Oh, yeah. Soto Guerrero would just be all action. You know, I got to say, though, I think I'm going to take TBA over Ortiz. I'm not sure.
Wow. Did you go there?
He's been out of the gym. I'm not hearing good things. I don't know. We'll see. But as far as Soto Guerrero, man, that's just two guys that are going to be coming forward. It's going to be all action. I kind of lean towards Guerrero right now. He's on a little bit of a streak. I think he's less robotic than Soto.
Okay, and Shane Mosley, Andre Berto. It was amazing that Shane Mosley is so focused on one Floyd Mayweather. But here's the thing. He might have a fight January 30th against Andre Berto. I'm just wondering, is focus going to be there for Shane Mosley? I get the sense this is not the fight he wants.
Yeah, he reminds me of that Aesop fable about the dog with the bone in his mouth, and he looks over at the bridge and sees another dog with its bone in his mouth, but it's really just his reflection, so he barks at it and drops everything. You know, he needs to settle in on one opponent that he wants to fight, you know, whether it's a tune-up, whether it's Andre Berto, or it's Mosley, and just go, or Mayweather, and just go get that fight. You know, it's getting kind of embarrassing.
Out of sight,
level.
out of mind. And the problem is he's made himself out of sight for the most part. I feel bad for him, but at the same time, he's made his own decisions, and he's going to have to lie in his own bed that he made. Let's just hope he gets through this fight, and then he can start to talk about Mosley, Pacquiao, Cotto, whoever, or Mayweather, excuse me.
Yeah.
But I just think bitching and moaning and doing all that stuff to a certain degree, you start to tune it out, Gabe. You really do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, personally, the fight that I want to see, you know, because we have, you know, Pacquiao, Cotto lined up, and Mayweather's probably going to wait around for that winner. I think if he's waiting around for Pacquiao, I'm starting to lean towards Cotto. I don't think it's going to happen. I would really like to see Mosley Mayweather. I think that's the best fight that can be made right now, and it's the easiest fight to be made right now.
You want to make it. The problem is Floyd doesn't want to make it. Well, that's it for this week's edition of TNR. On behalf of Gabe Montoya and the rest of Max Boxing, till the next round, goodbye, everybody.